Welcome r/Prorevenge. Build a driveway across someone else's property without permission, pay the price. I was visiting my friend at his dad's house in an area where the land is so steep all the driveways have to switch back up from the main road to the houses. A straight driveway is not an option because it would be steeper than the building code allows. A few doors down the road there lived a nice old couple who until recently had a vacant lot next door to them, but the lot had sold, and the new owner had started construction on a new house. Unfortunately the lot was so steep that the new owner built his driveway partly on the old couple's land. It was carved out of the hillside with an excavator. This probably wouldn't have been a big deal if the new owner had approached the old couple first and asked nicely, but did he? Would I be telling this story if he had? In fact, the old couple had no idea what was happening until they came home one day to see a huge scar in the hillside snaking up from the road in front of their house, across the corner of their property, and winding upwards to where an excavator was working to prepare the land for their new neighbor's house. They were pretty upset, but being nice reasonable people, they figured it was an honest mistake, so they went over to talk to the machine operator. He didn't know anything useful, but he was happy to give them the phone number of the new property owner. The old guy gave him a call and politely explained the situation, but his new neighbor, whom he'd never even met, was having none of it. He flat out denied that the driveway crossed the property line, and he was rude enough that the old guy was pretty upset. At this point the old couple weren't sure what to do. They double-checked the property pins to make sure they were right, and of course they were, but after further conversations with the new owner it was clear he was an unreasonable guy who wasn't going to come to the negotiating table willingly. The old couple didn't want to take legal action because that would have been expensive, and, frankly, the damage to their yard was already done. At the same time, they couldn't just let someone walk all over them like that, especially if they were going to be living next door for the foreseeable future. So the situation stewed for a while as construction continued on the new house, until one day when my friend's dad saw the old couple in the neighborhood and they started chatting. Of course they told him the story about the asshole new neighbor. Now, my friend's dad really likes the old couple, who don't have a mean bone in their bodies, so he was pretty pissed about the situation, and when he went home he couldn't get it out of his head. That evening, after a few beers, he had a brilliant idea. He called up the old couple, explained his plan, and asked for their permission to carry it out. They chuckled and gave him the go-ahead, so he hopped into the rusty old full-size pickup he kept as a second vehicle and drove it over to the old couple's place, where he parked it across the encroaching driveway, making sure it was entirely on their property. The next morning the work crew arrived bright and early to find that they couldn't drive to the house they were building because some jackass had parked a shitty old F-150 across the driveway. They saw the note in the window with my friend's dad's phone number on it, so they called him to ask WTF. He explained that he had permission from the owners to park there and that, no, he would not move his truck so they could get to work. Furthermore, if anyone attempted to tow the truck they would be charged with trespassing and theft. There was no way the construction guys were going to haul all their tools up the hill by hand, and they didn't want to get in the middle of a legal battle, so they just called the new owner to let him know they'd be taking the day off, and that they'd continue to take days off until the property boundary dispute was resolved. The new owner called the old couple in a fury, but the old couple told them the same thing my friend's dad told the construction workers. Basically, the vehicle was parked on their own property, so if he had a problem with that he could go himself. To make an already long story shorter, the new neighbor anted a while, but eventually he wanted his house to be built, so the nice old couple ended up with a significant sum of money in exchange for an easement allowing the driveway to pass across the corner of their property, and my friend's dad got several thank you cases of beer and the satisfaction that comes from putting an asshole in his place. Edits. Phrasing. This occurred in a small town in Canada. For those who think I made it up, thanks for thinking I'm so clever, but judging by the number of similar stories in the comments and people asking if this was next town, I think this happens pretty often, not too surprising considering the number of houses built each year in the world. Regarding the legal questions and comments, the reason the guy built the driveway where he did was because it was cheaper and easier than making it all on his land, not because there was no other option. So most of your points, if not all, are moot. I'm on mobile so can't paint a picture, but imagine two lots next to each other on the uphill side of a road with the property boundary perpendicular to the road. The older couple live on the left. When you're looking uphill, the new driveway is for the property on the right, and it snakes up the hill in a, roughly, S-shape. The bottom 50 feet or so of the driveway crosses the old couple's land to reach the road. I'm not sure if any trees were harmed in the making of this post. The driveway was done by the time I saw it, but the couple didn't make that an issue, so I suspect not. Yes, my friend's dad drove after drinking a few beers. Every hero has his flaw. Thanks for reading. TLDNR, neighbor built a driveway across someone else's land without permission and wouldn't compensate them for it, so they parked a truck across it to block access to his land until he would negotiate. Why didn't the old couple go to the town and report the new neighbor for code violations? The inspector would have come out and stopped all progress on that worksite real quick. Some towns have such high levels of bureaucracy that even lawyers look more appealing to deal with. Source: I live in a city where all but 2 of the council members are continually suing each other for he said/she said bullshit, rather than serving the community they live in. Not saying this is the case with Opstown, but it's certainly a possibility. The jurisdiction would jump on that right away, no matter which jurisdiction. The driveway to a new house would have to have a permit from Public Works or BO, and building department would have had to verify locations as well. Both departments failed to verify easements and property lines, and issued permits in error. If owner sues, the city would also be liable. They would go out and fix that immediately. Here's an example of overly complicated things. We want to build a fence around our property. Apparently, there's city code that fences in front of your house cannot be more than 4 feet tall. I've seen fences in front of houses that are taller, so we went to town hall to inquire and get a permit. We are told that they only hear inquiries about fencing on the 3rd Thursday of the month, and once heard, the council will reply by the next meeting on the next 3rd Thursday of the month. Time permitting, of course. We've been here for almost 7 months, and we have yet to even start planning a fence. Some people are just assholes. My neighbor has been a nuisance since we first moved in. She started harassing my grandmother about not drying our washing in a dryer because having them on the line is ruining her view. View of what, bitch? Our backyard? She was wrongly getting our mail for a bit, so instead of walking 5 meters and putting it in our mailbox or letting us know, she would write "not at this address" on them, then go down the street to remail them. We only found out eventually because the postie asked us about it. Who knows how much mail we never received. We had a massive storm a couple weeks ago, and one of our yellow lid wheelie beans ended up in her front yard. We noticed it as we were leaving the house, so I went over and brought it back. When we got home, she had come into our yard and swapped our one for hers. They're literally the exact same, except hers has a green lid. One time she told my gran that she should be more active because it's not good for people her age to sit around the house all day. My gran goes to work every morning. She's literally the most active person I know. The neighbor recommended boot scooting. What's worse, and this is only my experience here, is the asshole neighbors are usually the ones doing illegal shit as well. I don't get why they are assholes to the very people who have access to catch them doing illegal shit and turn them in. I have neighbors on 3 sides. To my right, awesome couple and their mothers. Beautiful little girls. Nice quiet family. We have them over for BBQ once in a while. Otherwise, rarely see them as they are like us. Keep to themselves. Mostly don't bother folks. I mow his lawn when I'm doing mine, and his mows mine when he is doing his. Keeps us all at the same length so it all looks good. Just a good relationship. Neighbors to the left, same great family. My kids play on their swing set. Their kids play in my backwoods. Their dogs poop in my yard. He comes over and cleans it up. Never had to ask him. He just does it. Neighbors up the hill in front of my house. Great couple of gals. Sisters would literally give you the last dollar they had if they felt it would help you more than them. But the neighbors on the other side of the sister, now, they most likely cook meth given the trash I have seen, and they are constantly harassing the nice sisters. So guess who is making friends with the garbage men and casually noting that the assholes seem to be going through a lot of small propane canisters and tinfoil and drain cleaner. Garbage men are trained to look for these things and report. Time will tell.